I'm delighted to say that we have Seth Werner all the way from Miami, Florida with us. Hey, Seth, how's it going?
Very good, Mark. It's nice to be here.
It was great to see you on my recent visit to Miami, and we definitely appreciate you participating in this leadership series. Because, not to put too much pressure on you, I know you're going to bring some great insights and perspectives for our audience and the world on it. So if you could start just like a mini 2-minute who you are, what you've done, that'd be great.
Well, Mark, as you know, I started a real estate investment business when I was 26 years old here in Miami, having lived in Santa Barbara, California for the 3 years prior to that, where I learned the investment business. And that business grew over the years to where in 1981 we took the company public in an IPO. And in 1984, we were fortunate to have the company acquired by a similar type company based in Atlanta. So having started a company from scratch with one partner and one employee, and growing it to where we had assets under management of over $2 billion in value, and having raised in the public marketplace in the neighborhood of $700 million, it was quite a feat. And from there, I quasi-retired. I did a few things, and then in 1988 started acquiring real estate again as the market here became very favorable for those of us who understood what values were in the Florida real estate market. I wound up acquiring a tremendous portfolio again, sold that off in 1993, and was ready to sit by the pool pretty much and go skiing when the opportunity came up. And into my office marched two guys that I knew who had a very interesting idea on how to build a software program to aid the residential mortgage origination business. And we started a business from that concept, which we ultimately built from 1993 to 1999, which was called Mortgage.com. And we were the first residential mortgage originators in the country to have a national platform to originate residential mortgages on the internet. And we took that company public in August of 1999 and wound up selling the business in about a year later to a Dutch bank. So I've had a good deal of experience in starting businesses, growing businesses, and have been very fortunate over the years to hit good timing on ideas and opportunities that I brought to the table. And currently, quasi-retired again and investing in real estate as the opportunities present themselves, as well as investing in other businesses and advising businesses.
And it's a great background. I want to tie that in with some of my questions. So this is about leadership in general, and the simple question, and there's no real simple answer, but briefly to start it off, what's your perspective or what's your definition of leadership?
Well, everybody has a different viewpoint of that. Mine is that it really is made up of 4 or 5 elements. Anybody who starts a business has to, if they don't have it when they start, they have to have gained some modicum of leadership capabilities over time. I found that there's really 4 or 5 elements. The first is that you have to be consistent. If you want people to follow your lead, you have to deal with them in a consistent manner. The second is you have to be fair. And that's very, very critical, because employees and partners will pick up very quickly if you're not consistent and you're not fair.
Right.
The third element is honesty. That's one of the elements that, again, partners and employees will pick up very quickly, and unless you are honest with them and you are consistent and you are fair, you're not going to build the kind of culture that people are going to follow you. And lastly, I think you have to be energetic. There's people who work in an organization are looking for their leaders to be positive and energetic and show them the way, even when things are at their bleakest. If you don't have your head up, and if you're not looking forward, and if you're not confident in where you're going and how you're going to get there, then they're going to see that, and they're going to be very difficult. It's going to be very difficult for them to have the energy that you want them to have. So those are, to me, the elements of what makes good leadership. Obviously, there are times when we all are tired and there are issues that come up, maybe sometimes beyond our control, that it's difficult to be as consistent and fair as you'd like to be. But if you're not honest and energetic and consistent and fair, you're going to have a difficult time with your employee base.
Yeah, I think you've hit on a lot of great points there. The point about creating a winning culture or the right culture, a line that I always remember is Peter Drucker said that culture eats strategy for breakfast, basically, because you got to start somewhere. And as you know, I compare a lot of things to sports, including the coach who will stand up and do anything for his players. Then it turns into the players will do anything for their coach. So you mentioned if you're tired or this or that. Part of leadership, I would say, then, in developing a winning culture is developing leaders under you.
You can't
right?
do it all yourself. If you think you can, you're going to come up short. And the best leaders are those who can develop other leaders to grow the business.
I also work with a lot of startups and young growing companies, et cetera, and rightly so, you notice everybody's celebrating when they get the funding, but then I also see a lot of times they realize that, holy cow, hard part's still to come, the scaling and growing it. You've been involved in a lot of businesses. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, you're absolutely right. The funding, getting funding along the way, whether it's one time or multiple times, is the gasoline that drives the car. Without the funding, very, very difficult to grow your business. And so the CEO or founder or the entrepreneur who starts the business can never take their eye off the ball of making sure there's enough money in the bank to drive the business. Therefrom, you're right, the hard part beyond raising money, and it is in most cases difficult. Nobody just hands money to others without good reason. But beyond that, the single biggest thing that I continuously strive to let people know whose businesses I invest in and whose businesses I advise is that you must have the right people in the right positions, and you must take the step to remove those people when they turn out not to be the right people. None of us are perfect in the employee selection process. I've been doing this for 50 years, and I can tell you that I make mistakes even as late as 6 months ago. And you try.
Really, I
you try to
use
all the methodologies available in terms of psychological testing and interview process and so forth. But you're going to make mistakes because there are some people who just interview very well and then don't integrate into the business as well as you'd like them to. There's personality issues. And I've found that the times when I finally have let go of people who weren't working out, I've had other employees say to me, "What took you so long?" And when I hear that, I say to myself, I just don't know why. It's probably ego that they were selected by me to begin with. But if you don't move those people out and get good people to take their place, that's a major issue in growing a business. And you can overcome just about anything if you have enough capital and you have good people. But without those two, you're dead in the water.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. And you talked about honesty and trust before, and trust is something that comes up with all our executive clients that are looking to interview other people. Is they always ask me, how can I interview for leadership? And one of the big words is the trust. And I think that relates to what you're talking about hiring and or keeping somebody or not. Is if you develop a trust from people that you're going to do the right thing, then even letting somebody go can become a little bit easier. It's not easy, but easier. At least that's what we see.
In business is
go
hire
ahead.
people. The most difficult thing to do is fire them. If you realize that early on, then you do whatever you can to make sure as much as possible that you're not making a mistake. But we all do.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I won't tell the whole story, but I interviewed a guy a number of years ago, and he was telling me why he got let go by the company, at which point he proceeded to tell me about his gun collection. No joke. And I'm thinking, how do I get out of this one? And so we talked and talked. I tried to get off the topic, and I said to him, and we'll get back to you. Thank you so much for coming. Jeez. Holy cow. Hey, let's talk about leadership in the sense of boards. We've talked about a board position, board roles out there. There's different types of boards in the sense of a startup versus a big public company. But as an investor, as someone that sits and wants to sit on boards, etc., how do you determine
are you asking me if I'm selecting the board member or if I'm looking at on the outside at a board and deciding whether or not I will participate? Okay. Well, having been chairman of the board of both the companies I've taken
I'm asking
public,
you both.
My experience has been in selecting board members not dissimilar from the experience in selecting employees. The first thing is there's got to be some kind of chemistry. I'm going to spend a lot of time with my employees, at least in the early stages for sure, before we start to get into middle management, growth, and so forth. In the case of the board of directors, I'm going to spend a lot of time with them directly, and I have to feel comfortable that in spending that time, it's not going to be contentious, not that there's not going to be situations where they will not agree with me. But there are certain people that are contentious by nature, negative by nature, and frankly, I don't want to be around those people, and I don't want them to permeate the attitude and the culture that I'll build on the board. So I've got to I have to have a good feeling for those people. I have to know that they have some industry experience or experience in industries that will relate to what we're doing. And I have to know that they're going to be available not just for the once a quarter board meeting, but any board in a growth company is going to have to meet from time to time on weekends or evenings by telephone or Skype or whatever. And I can't have a board member who is not available to the board when we need them. If I'm looking on the outside at going on a board, my first step is to really have a good feeling about the chairman of the board, the CEO, the president, the people that are calling the shots in the business, and make sure that they have what I think are the same cultural elements that I would want: the integrity, the energy, where they're going with this business is very important to me. The other board members are less important to me because I want to say that you're never, as a new board member coming on, going to really see those people in action before you're on the board. You can meet with them and you can talk with them, but until you see them in action, it's going to be very difficult to really get the sense of them that you'd like to get. I had a board member some years ago who loved to take the opposite position of everybody else in the room. And I put up with it for about 2 years. Why that long, I don't know. And I finally said to him one day, this is really not for you, but it's really not for me. Because I love the fact that you like to take the devil's advocate position. And frankly, I don't have the time or the energy to spend on trying to convince you every time that the devil's advocate position is wrong. And that's a very important aspect to me.
Well, I agree. Well, bottom line, devil's advocate can be valuable sometimes, but if it's over and over again, it sucks the energy out of everything, basically. So, hey, let me ask you, you've developed a lot of relationships over the years. You contribute to your community a lot. For up-and-coming leaders, and these days, especially related to boards even, there's a lot of younger people getting on boards for specific expertise, a lot of different things. But for up-and-coming leaders, tell us and them how
me, I
developing
can only
relationships
really speak for myself and what done for
actually
me,
impacts their own
I have
personal
found
and their
that
career growth.
I cannot give kindness or charity away. It always comes back to me.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't necessarily come back right away, and it doesn't necessarily come back in a format that I can describe to you. But I have never been disappointed in going out first and becoming involved in either a charitable event or some giving opportunity. And connections, as you know, in life are really, really critical. With the old saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I graduated from the University of Illinois in history and political science. That was my major and my minor.
Right.
I graduated in the top 90% of my class. And so I will say that a tremendous amount of the success that I've had in my life has been as a result of the connections and good fellowship I've been able to generate over the years and utilize those and be the first one to offer whatever I can do for people in advance of worrying about what they can do for me. It has never disappointed me.
Yeah, and there's a reason I ask it to a lot of people is it's become an old expression now for something new. Everybody thinks we're so connected, but everybody's starting to realize we're not necessarily as connected as we think because it's not a relationship, it's more of a connection. And I've seen it numbers of times. People work their whole lives and work hard, and they think they got relationships, but they don't. They just have connections. And younger people connecting with everybody all over the place, but not having a relationship. So
that's a very,
we always
very
say
good
people
point.
hire people and people
it goes to the point
join people.
of organizations.
There is a difference between a relationship and a connection.
Websites like
Correct.
LinkedIn, where you can connect into as many people as you're willing to put the time in to make those connections. But without building the relationships, it's not very valuable.
Yeah, I think that's super.
Well, I
super
think
advice.
that
Hey, what would be
those of us who are entrepreneurial
what would have been your most challenging
run into
leadership
from time to time?
experience
Not every
that you've had
business or opportunity that you think of or begin works out the way you'd like it to. And I have always brought in partners and investors with me in whatever I've done. It started back in the earliest days when I started buying real estate. The most difficult thing is to turn to people who have invested with you, whether it's their money or their time, and tell them it just didn't work. It's not a good feeling. It's not something that anybody ever thought about when you first started. But there have been those times where I've had to bite the bullet and make the phone call or knock on the door and just sit down with someone who's made an investment or spent time with us and say, this just isn't working out, and I've got to put a lid on this and move on to something that's more valuable in terms of spending my time and my money. So those
Well, that is leadership is telling them honestly versus
yes,
hemming, hawing, and all that type of stuff.
Very
But it
active
does
tennis
work.
player.
So, some personal
As of late,
questions.
I've become involved in
Very
golf.
personal questions.
Not as proficient at that as
do you
I
have a
am in
favorite
tennis,
activity or
but
sport?
I've over the years had tennis courts in my home and have played quite a bit, and I love playing tennis. I've been playing since I'm 12 years old.
Remind me to.
Not really. I think I enjoy watching sports on TV, but other than that, I really don't watch a lot of TV. I've never watched a reality show. I don't understand the fascination with those shows, but I will usually sit down and spend time with my wife, and whatever she's watching, I'll join in. But she will not sit down and join in watching a football game with me. So. Yes, you have mentioned that to me, and I'm going to look at that.
I'll join you for the football game. There's a great show that is on TV
I
now,
would
by
say
the way.
that I'm an
It's about
oldies
a friend
fan.
of mine
I like
named Walter
to
O'Brien, and it's
to
called
listen
Scorpion.
to the songs from the 50s and 60s and 70s. And
Check it
just
out.
the
It's
other night, I was
pretty
fortunate
cool.
to be in Las
Do you have a
Vegas.
favorite type of music?
Went to the Eagles concert and really enjoyed that. And I'm not a big concert goer, but it was easy for us because we were right there. But I'm more of an oldies fan than I am of the new music. I cannot take rap music.
I knew you were going to say that.
Oh, I
Hey,
like to eat everything.
Keith Richards
That's
said
the
not too long ago,
unfortunate part.
he's writing
I'm
children's books now. He
I'm
said, if I
big
knew
restaurant
I was going
goer.
to
I
live
love
this long, I wouldn't have
love
partied that
Italian
hard.
food and American food, Chinese food.
Go figure.
Just,
Do you have a favorite
unfortunately,
type
I
of
like it
food you
all.
like to eat?
Well, I appreciate your
Yeah, no, well,
asking me
Miami
to
has a
come on
lot
the
of good
show, and it's been a
choices,
lot
so
of fun.
there's a big plus right there.